I'll try to verify that, yep, we are connecting. So we are
Right.
streaming. So we are live now. So I guess we can start by introducing ourselves. I can go first. I'm David Anderson from Bitfolio Academy. I started Bitfolio 2014, but I didn't really start educating and becoming a crypto educator until 2019 or 2020, something like that. But for the last couple of years, I've been doing it quite steadily, uh, getting ready to release a new version of my Crypto Essentials course. I think it should be ready just in a couple more days. I first did the Crypto Essentials in 2021, so it's a little bit dated, so it's time to update it. So that's me in a nutshell. This is George from UpTrade. Go ahead, George, introduce yourself.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone, and really excited for this live stream. So, a bit of background. My name is George, and I'm in Melbourne, Australia. That's where I'm located. So, I work in the brokerage team at a company called UpTrade. We're a digital asset brokerage. It's just sort of commenced as of 2023, last year, and things are growing in a really, really exciting direction. So, really excited to speak with David today a little bit about a few topics that we've got planned, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, George, tell me, what coins or tokens are you most interested in at the present time? What's getting you excited lately in the crypto space?
Yeah, it's a great question, David. A few of the projects that really are interesting me, particularly in certain verticals that we've sort of identified as the key narratives for this current cycle. And typically they fall within a few narratives, which is artificial intelligence, meme coins, real world assets, and at times, which seems to be a lagging trend, but Bitcoin DeFi at the moment is something that's really a trailblazer in the narrative. So we're really identifying that there are some that are the main core narratives, and then there's a sub theme, and we're really trying to identify and carve out which ones are. It's very clear that meme coins are currently leading the charge, which is quite controversial. But I guess to answer your question in terms of some of the projects that I'm excited about, that are really sort of innovating and constantly improving and receiving a lot of funding, projects like Stacks, Bitcoin Layer 2. There's projects like Render Network, BitTensor or Tau. There's a few others that we're watching at the moment in RWA, like Ondo Finance for tokenized yield. And so there are a couple of the tokens that we're sort of keeping a close eye on, and it's very heavily on our radar. And it seems to be consensus across most of the community in the crypto space, because these are really sort of projects that have really strong communities, VC backing and funding, and they are quite innovative in the space, and particularly in AI. We're seeing huge innovations in the TradFi space. OpenAI and Microsoft just announced $100 billion fund for a new data center, an AI-centric data center, and I think these are a lot of these traditional finance trends will flow into the crypto sphere, and we're only at 20 billion market cap at the moment in AI, or approximately thereabouts. So it could potentially be a very interesting segment over the next decade.
Yeah, somebody recently asked me if I had a couple of $1,000, what would I do with it? And I told them I would buy meme coins. But you have to understand that, that's only like if I put a couple of $1,000 in meme coins, it would only be like 1/10 of 1% of my total investment. I mean, I have so much in the large cap coins. I suppose about 2 years ago, when we had a real market downturn, or maybe it started. I think it started on the Terra Luna crash, and I guess that was in 2021. I started getting ultra conservative. I mean, it's like, oh shit, the market's going in the other direction, right? And I was lucky that I was really monitoring stuff. I had experienced the iron finance crash. That was another stable coin that was so-called algorithmic stable coin. So I saw that crash. So when Terra Luna crashed, I was like, holy shit, this is not good, right? So I recognized that it was going south, and I got out. And luckily, I didn't have a lot of my funds locked up, so I was able to get out quickly. a lot of people were staking and whatever, and or borrowing against their Luna, and I had some of that. I had some Luna locked up in osmosis, but I was able to liquidate the vast majority. And then all of a sudden, it was just like one shit storm after another, and the market was going south, and so I just started getting out of all the risk assets, getting out of osmosis, getting out of all these yield farms that I was in, and started putting most of my cash in Bitcoin, Ethereum, the top 10, top 20 mega coins. So it's interesting that you mentioned stacks. That's one that I didn't liquidate. I was, I've been like staking stacks for since 2021, and so that's one that I didn't get out. But anyway, and then I've been lazy lately. I haven't gotten back into DeFi too much. I'm still staking quite a lot, um, so I'm earning compound interest on my assets, but I'm still kind of conservative. So anyway, I bought some meme coins lately. I wrote a couple of articles on it. So I'm into that. So it brings me to my next question. You mentioned stacks. Why are you excited about stacks?
Yeah, it's also a really good question. Um, I think the main interest from stacks it sort of stems from when we had the 2021 DeFi summer, where a lot of the protocols on Ethereum, like Compound, Aave, really came to light and brought out this new concept of lending and borrowing on decentralized finance. And now we're heading into a new era, a new cycle where DeFi is still one of the main applications of crypto. It's being able to take control over your investments and seek yield outside of traditional markets like interest rates or treasury bonds, the money market. So I think that the real value of a layer two like Stacks is, I guess Bitcoin is such a large store of value, and that's what it has been for the past 15 or 16 years in its existence. And we have about 1.4 trillion. I haven't really checked the market cap today, but it's approximately around that, just sitting idle as store of value in people's ledgers, in their seed phrase somewhere in the ground in the world, maybe on their bookshelf that they've stored there on a ledger. And so what this really innovative concept is doing is it's creating and unlocking the value in Bitcoin's ecosystem by being able to sort of start to build applications for earning yield on your Bitcoin, lending it, lending, borrowing, staking, all these different applications. And so I guess Stacks it's not a new project, as you said, it's been around for quite a few years. But I think the importance of it in today's world is that this narrative of Bitcoin DeFi is starting to really kick off, and there are a whole different categories, like there's trading ordinals at the moment. Hops wizards have gone really nuts lately, and there are there's other decentralized exchanges that are being built to facilitate these tradings, like Swap or Movie, and different there's different use cases. But in particular, to Stacks, um, it really does stand out. It's one of the pioneering projects that's facilitating Bitcoin DeFi, and it's a layer two solution. So it pretty much enables developers to build applications that harnesses Bitcoin security, but also offering the flexibility and functionality required for decentralized financial activities. So this includes, as I said earlier, like lending, borrowing protocols, liquid staking applications, and decentralized exchange, whilst also having lower transaction fees. And so it really leverages on Bitcoin's security in the network, as Bitcoin provides the final finality. But it's really just tapping into the vast pool of liquidity within the ecosystem and attracting like a new wave of investments and participants to the cryptocurrency space by offering solutions that allow users to earn yield or access financial services using their Bitcoin holdings. So it's a really interesting play for this current cycle. Like I said, do I think that Bitcoin and DeFi is the main narrative? I'm not sure. That's still yet to be uncovered, and it could change as we go through this year and the next. But they just had, I believe, the Nakamoto release, which is a massive upgrade to the Stacks ecosystem. And that will bring sort of 100% Bitcoin finality, faster transaction times, and it will continue to make Stacks a top competitor to other ecosystems as its user experience, security, and incentives for developers will be to build on their network. So that's a bit of background for Stacks, mainly because of the use case is why I'm really interested in it. But that was just my take, David. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a really strong understanding.
So, as a little anecdote about Stacks, BlockStacks was one of the first to actually file all the paperwork necessary with the SEC in the United States to become a security. So, I mean, I don't remember exactly what all the paperwork they filed, but they got permission from the SEC. So, they're one of the few that basically jump through all the hoops and can legally sell stacks in the U.S. without any problem, that sort of thing. I noticed you mentioned liquid staking. I noticed they recently added that. I mean, I guess it's been the last 6 months or so that they now have a liquid staking solution, which is very nice. I was so stacks. You have when you're staking stacks, you have to you can only stake it for like 7 months, and then you have to go back and restake because they have like epochs or something. And I think, oh, anyway, so I recently upgraded my operating system, and as a result, the old wallet, my Stacks wallet, was like missing on my OS, so I had to reinstall it. And then so it kind of got me thinking about UpTrade because I'm like, holy shit, this is annoying as hell because they changed the name of their wallet. And I'm like, oh, I have to reinstall this wallet, where it used to be called Hero, Hiro, and now they call it Leather. And I'm like, what? So I was doing like Google searches for Stacks wallet, and I saw Leather. I'm like, well, I don't want a freaking leather wallet, screw that. I thought it was like, yeah, leather wallet. What the hell? So anyway, it took me a while to find it. And finally I found it, and I'm like, okay, is leather the same thing as hero? Whatever. It's going to recognize my old wallet kind of thing. Anyway, so it's kind of a fiasco. But every time I do, and then I had a ledger problem. I hadn't upgraded my firmware on my ledger in a few months, I guess. So I was doing DeFi recently, and it wasn't working. Like some of the apps, like on the Solana network, wasn't working. And anyway, so I had to. But every time I have to do these things like reinstall my wallet or upgrade the ledger firmware, it just makes me nervous as hell. I'm like, it just, get this little pit in my stomach because when you're dealing with tens of thousands of dollars, whatever, it just makes me nervous as hell. So this is one of the advantages of UpTrade is like you guys just give your money to you guys, and you take responsibility for wallets and all that stuff, right? I mean, you don't have to do any of that, right? Is that one of the advantages behind UpTrade?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel your pain of having to re-download or reinstall MetaMask and or different wallets. It can be quite a bit of a gut sinking moment when you realize that you haven't got your seed phrase or to recover it, or you forgot your password, and there's always that constant worry in the back of your mind: is my asset safe? And yeah, absolutely, when it's tens of thousands of dollars. It can be quite nerve-wracking, and people are busy, they have a million other passwords to remember and a million other things on their plates, and crypto is such a different kettle of fish where not only is it a new concepts and technology, but it's just such a big learning curve for people. And so exactly right, David. At UpTrade we use the gold standard of custody solutions, and that's through a proprietary software, an enterprise proprietary software called Fireblocks. When I say gold standard, they've never been breached. They use MPC security, and they're quite really well known in the industry. So a lot of the Australian banks, like ANZ Bank and NAB, they're the top four banks in Australia. They actually use Fireblocks for their own custody solutions, and so yeah, definitely there's a lot of peace of mind that we can bring to people, and it's optional whether people want to custody with UpTrade, or we can actually send the project's tokens to themselves. And we obviously always endorse being a holder of your own tokens and self-custodying, but we provide the option for custody within our brokerage, and we don't charge anything for that as like a fee. So yes, please do some some research into Fireblocks as security measures. They are really fantastic, and they're quite an expensive software to to use.
One of the companies that I worked for back in 2019 was a blockchain company, and one of the things that they wanted to do was to do a custody solution, where they would, I mean, they didn't want to custody the assets, but they wanted to store the keys and to, it was kind of a, it wasn't a self custody. It was a, anyway, the company didn't want to custody the assets, but the customer didn't have to custody the assets either. So it's kind of a combination of the two. So the wallet was something that was it was actually stored on AWS and their in one of their crypto vaults there. But anyway, that's just a side note. So you mentioned stacks. You mentioned some of the other narratives that you are excited about. What are some other coins that you're interested in, or are you staking stacks, by the way, or are you just holding it?
Me personally, I've just rebalanced into Bitcoin DeFi into another narrative recently. So a project that I'm really interested in personally because of the, see, I like to invest, this from a personal perspective as part of my own investment thesis, is I like to invest in the most disruptive technology of the current decade, and I believe that will be artificial intelligence. And so a project that is quite, I wouldn't say it's easy to grasp because people are still trying to understand it end to end, but that is BitTensor, or Tau, and it's internet scale machine learning. And I'm currently staking that because the API is very high at the moment. It's about 15%, 15.5%. I first got in very, very early when the API was about 24%. So if you just compare that to any interest rate offered by any bank or any other DeFi protocol, it's very, very competitive. So for that reason, I'm sort of staking Tau over a player like Stacks or Solana due to the competitiveness of it. And the reason Tau interests me most is because you see in AI, a lot of the traditional companies like OpenAI and Microsoft, they have siloed, language models, or their own sort of data is kept private. Whereas with Tau, they're creating a collective intelligence marketplace where each person can contribute their large language models or their learnings into a collective pool, and it's going to help the exponential growth of machine learning. And so people can plug and play and use these models for different use cases. For different use cases, what we call like subnets. So the subnets. So the best way I can describe it is like looking at it as the Ethereum of AI. So Ethereum obviously was the main, the native layer. Then you had all the ICOs that had different use cases. So similar to Tau, you've got the main chain of Tau, and then you have all the different subnets. And the reason I really like Tau as well is because it has very high backing. So a digital currency group, and also Foundry. So Foundry is one of the biggest Bitcoin miners in the crypto space, and they also are now staking Tau and offering that as a service to their clients. But they have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into this project, and because it's fair launched, I guess there are no real VCs that could buy it at really early seed round investments, so very cheap and holds to a large portion of the supply. Anything fair launched is very easily distributed. Of course, there are other projects like Render Network, which a lot of the VCs got in early on, but they're not going to be selling yet. So they'll be waiting until they either can unlock at the end of the cycle or whenever they have access to their unlock periods, depending on their vesting schedule. So come 2025, I think that a lot of these VC projects will really potentially sell off as people cash in, but fair launch projects like Tau will be a little bit more distributed, and the sell-off won't be as sharp or as vigorous because it will take a larger amount of time for each person to liquidate as opposed to a large holder. So yeah, internet scale machine learning and with various subnets, like for example, Foundry has actually listed their own subnet, which is a Standard & Poor and S&P 500 price prediction generator, which is fantastic. So they're going to use Tau's intelligence to try to build out an ability to predict where the S&P is going. So yeah, I always play it back to what's the most disruptive technology, and decentralized artificial intelligence is going to be a pivotal part of creating more accessible language models to a larger audience. If for startups and companies that can't afford, a very expensive, you know, AI computation from some of the traditional players, so it's really going to help keep things very accessible and affordable and essentially that's what we need because NVIDIA has a large control and bottleneck over the industry at the moment. So I think that these fair, distributed projects will really help create a lot of that growth that we need to scale these machine learning applications. But I guess David, you have a lot of experience in this field. I know that you've been experimenting with a few, prompt generators or of the likes recently. It'd be great to get your take on your understanding of how artificial intelligence may play a big part this decade, especially decentralized AI.
Yeah, so I'm a computer programmer. I mean, that's what I've been doing for the last 20, 25 years, whatever. Um, I'm also a systems engineer, I started using Apache Spark. I was one of the first people to use Apache Spark back like 10 years ago. I did some work for the government with Apache Spark. I did some work on the stock market with the SEC and all that. And Apache Spark has machine learning built in. They have a machine learning library. So I've been doing machine learning for a long time. But here lately, of course, I'm into just whatever models are coming out. Meta just released an open source their Llama 3 model, which is very exciting. They're working on like 300 billion, um, 300 billion data points, whatever they call it, model that is currently being trained, and they're planning to release it open source. They've got a 70 billion already released, whatever. They just did that last week, I think. So I'm using all these models, and one of the things I would like to do is to plug it into my Discord server, and I've known how to do it now for about a month, but I haven't. I've just been kind of lazy because it's not really a high priority for me because I really don't think if people get in on the Discord server, I don't think they're going to know what questions to ask in order to get good intelligence out of, because if it's just a command line, and they have to come up with their own questions. So what I'm excited about is to create kind of a Masari kind of thing where you just enter in a symbol like BTC for Bitcoin, or any kind of symbol, uh, PEPE for Pepe, or and then it will just, like a perplexity AI, it'll just pull all the data and just kind of present it to you, give you a report, but it'll be a report generated by AI. And I can put that on my website. I can put that perhaps in the Discord server. So that's kind of what I've been interested in doing. And as soon as I have time, that's what I'm going to be working on. So anyway, I'm very much into AI and very much into using it for my own personal productivity, also investing in it as well. So that's pretty exciting. So before we leave, what other narratives do you think are trending at the present time?
Yeah, this is a great question. And especially recently, there's been a little bit of a shift in the narratives. It's quite controversial because we had Hedera Hashgraph just announced incorrectly that they had a tokenized fund by BlackRock. So they pumped 100%, and then they've sort of round tripped back to the bottom because it was a false announcement, and BlackRock came and corrected it. So this is where narratives can sort of shift and change according to different news and headlines. So real world assets was going to really kick off currently and present that we sort of identified. I think DeFi and RWA could be some of the new sort of shifts in the narratives for the short term. However, it's very obvious and evident that meme coins are the bread and butter of this cycle. They don't seem to be cooling off at all, frankly, and it's really important. I think one to watch is the base ecosystem. I think that's a really new ecosystem that is getting a lot of attention because Coinbase has about 100 million users on their wallets that they're hoping to push into that network as a layer 2 on Ethereum. So a lot of the meme coins on Base could absorb a lot of that activity. So really, narratives is such a a moving beast, and it can change according to headlines. And there are some main core narratives and some sub narratives under that. And it really is a matter of identifying what will trend at this present time. So it seemed like RWA from the BlackRock announcement, as of the last few days, but seeing that that's a false news release, I'm really needing to reassess what will happen. But I think DeFi is coming up again and really important now, and we use a lot of analysis and tools to try to predict these trends early in advance. That's part of our sort of core offering, and it can always forever evolve. But I'm still of the opinion that AI and meme coins are the sort of super cycle main drivers for this run. And then what we potentially will see is that some of these sub themes like RWA, they might become the core narrative of the next cycle beyond this one. And so we need to sort of constantly scour these, and it's probably the single most important factor of where you allocate your capital to ensure that you are in the right plays and the right projects, because we've all been there where we see something and we think, oh, it looks so promising, and why is it not performing well, and everything else is pumping, and you just get this constant emotional cycle of, am I in the right project? But by identifying these trends and using as much data as you can, it will really help you eliminate all that emotion and opinion as well.
So I'll just tell one more little anecdote, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we're coming up on basically we plan on doing about 30 minutes, and but maybe we'll do another 30 minutes next week or something if you're available. But but anyway, I was down at the Bitcoin Miami conference back in May of last year, and there was this guy who purchased a banner, one of these things that you fly behind a propeller airplane, and it says, Pepe is the new Bitcoin. So he was there promoting his thing. By the way, I had done some T-shirts using Stability AI, Bitcoin T-shirts, and I was interested in seeing if there was any demand for that, which there wasn't. But it got me to talk to a lot of different people. But anyway, so I bought some Pepe at that time because this guy was so interested. I interviewed him, about Pepe, and he was promoting it really big, and he didn't really have any good reasons for why Pepe was going to take off. So anyway, I bought some, and it didn't do anything for a long time. It was it just it was just pretty stable, and then all of a sudden, about 2 or 3 months ago, it started taking off, and it did about a 10x, I think, in a short period of time, and now it came back down a little bit. But yeah, meme coins are really doing very well, and I think that if there's an alt season, I think that the meme coins will do quite well. So George, what do you think about doing another one of these maybe next week or the week after?
Yeah, ironically, I did catch that Pepe wave from the ultimate bottom, thankfully, which I've seen, that 10x now come down about 6x. So Pepe is an interesting one. I think that when the Ethereum network really kicks into gear, and we see a lot of that potential rise that could happen from Ethereum, if hopefully the ETF gets approved, depending on the SEC, that will be a big catalyst for it. A bit controversial, but no. To answer your question, yeah, I'd be happy to facilitate another Q&A, half an hour Q&A next week for anyone that's interested in learning more and just sort of having a great chat with you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks so much for doing this Q&A and making yourself available, and I look forward